Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Well, that right there is going to be the new show open and intro for my good friend who will be joining KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM starting today, a 1-hour program at 10 a.m. after this show wraps up. Kevin Kietzman, who is now officially uncanceled. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Great, Pete. How are you today? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing well. How's this feel getting back in the saddle?
You know what? I'm so excited. And I can't thank you and Donna Baker and Mark and John and all the folks here at Cumulus Kansas City that have been so kind to me over the last couple of years as I've been out of radio and the opportunity to come back in and do something we think is going to be a little bit different than what I've been doing outside of radio. Very excited. I think the way to describe it is uncanceled. That's the new theme song. I decided years ago if I ever had another radio show, that was going to be the theme song. I don't know why. I just like the sound of it. So for what it's worth, you'll probably get sick of hearing that music over and over. But we'll play it a lot, and I can't wait to be uncanceled at 10 o'clock today.
Well, you will be uncanceled at 10 o'clock every single weekday here on KCMO. What is the thing that made you want to come back and do radio, since you've been doing a great job, obviously, with the Kevin Kietzman Has Issues podcast? That is not going anywhere, by the way. So you're kind of just adding to your plate. You're getting back in the mix, doing some radio now every day.
Well, there's three things for me. One, I'm tired of being at home. I'm home a lot, okay? And it kind of gets old. I'm a little bit lonely. You know, I like interacting with people. I like coming to a workplace. I like being here. I'm looking forward to working with the sales team and promotions and all the different things that go with a radio station. I'm looking forward to that. Number two, I love interacting with listeners because I don't get a chance to do that as a podcaster. But on radio, we can take calls. We're going to be out in public. You do the Politics and a Pint events and so many different things out in the public, and we can interact with listeners more. And I love that. And my podcast has very few interviews. I don't do a lot of interviews. I've found that when I do interviews, they seem to be a little specific, and the downloads go down a little bit for whatever reason. So I don't do a lot of interviews. When I do them, they're generally shorter, and at the end of the podcast, this will give me a chance to do some interviews live on the radio, which I love doing. My favorite thing is follow-up questions. I like to come in with one or two questions, listen to what somebody has to say, and let it go and kind of flow from there. And I really miss that. So those three things.
Listen, I'm in the podcast space. You are obviously in there as well. And I agree. The fact that we don't get to interact with listeners live in the moment, you don't know what they're going to say, you don't know how you're going to react. That's something that podcasting just can't duplicate in this format.
It can't. It can't. And being on live broadcast, knowing so many people have the ability to be listening no matter where they are, is, well, let me put it to you this way. I wasn't going to share this, but I was feeling this last night, and I'm feeling it right now. I have not been nervous since 1996.
How about that?
I'm not kidding. I have not been nervous 1 second since the first time I went and did sports radio in Kansas City. It lasted a day. It was over, and we went from there. There's just a different level to being on live, a different expectation. There obviously are regulations by the FCC and things like that. It just seems to me like it's a higher standard than podcasting. We know what social media, the internet, and podcasting are. It's the Wild West. Anything goes. You can be as disgusting as you want. You can be as proper as you want. Everybody does something different, and it's very niche related. But there's something about broadcasting over the airwaves that is just a completely different feeling for anybody that's ever been in this industry.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about Howard Stern when he left terrestrial and went to Sirius. Like, Howard Stern, and I was a kid, as my parents would sometimes tune in, but it was like, how far will he go up to the line without potentially crossing that line, right? Once he got to Sirius, that was gone.
Yeah.
And there was something about not knowing whether or not he would push the envelope and get to that line that took away some of that intrigue with the show. And it sounds to me like that's what you're explaining a little bit here.
It is. Now, I'm not going to push anybody around here. I don't think.
No. You would never do such a thing.
I don't think I'm going to push the envelope with the FCC or anything like that. I've always been a very clean broadcaster.
You are,
so,
yes.
It's my generation and my style, and it's what I've always been. But I think what I really want to do, and I know with this, it's only a 1-hour show. What I really want to do is I want for people to say, I wonder what Kevin has to say at 10 o'clock today, and not know whether it's sports, politics, news, media, whatever it may be. We're going to do a topic. We'll take some calls on that. We'll typically have a guest following that. But I hope to create some sort of an expectation. I wonder what's on his mind that maybe somebody else hasn't thought about. That doesn't mean I achieve that every day, but that's always been my goal, to come up with something a little bit different. I know I can do this at 10 o'clock every day. In my sports takes, I can definitely do something that's not on sports radio in this town. Okay? I have found sports radio extremely dull over the last decade. It is filled with homers. It's filled with people who sit behind a microphone and repeat what their owners and their managers want them to say based on the affiliations that they have, the business affiliations with the teams that they have. That was never for me. I may make you uncomfortable. You may think I'm going to hate your team. You may not like some of my political takes or my news takes, but I'm going to tell you what I think, and that's just the way we're going to let this thing flow. Most of my sports topics will not be who is the Chiefs' third-string tight end.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
It's going to be something completely different or related to that. I've got some thoughts on Mayor Q being in the Chiefs movie, okay? So I want to talk about that today. We'll get to that. I know that's sort of sports-related and sort of not. Have you seen the Chiefs movie?
I've not yet.
Okay.
No.
So I watched the last 30 minutes of it late last night because I couldn't sleep and it was on. I've not watched it. It's Hallmark movies are the cheesiest thing ever. They're just not for me. I did not see Mayor Q's part, but I'm so proud of him now that he's a movie star, and they actually had a red carpet event with no gunplay. I mean, this was really exciting for Kansas City, Missouri, to not have any gunshots fired at Crown Center with Andy Reid there, the Hunt family, and all of the celebrities from the movie. It was very exciting for me.
Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled begins at 10 a.m. today on KCMO Talk Radio, new daily show, and that means Bongino is now going to be starting at 11 a.m. So Dan Bongino gets the 11 a.m. start. Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled begins at 10 a.m. So, Kevin, are you going to be good with just the 1 hour, by the way? Or are you going to be begging me for more here once you get started and get in the flow? It's going to go fast, man.
Let's kick the tires, brothers.
Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine.
I'm
already twisting his arm to do more.
Let's kick the tires.
Okay.
You got to make sure I'm right for you, man.
Well,
I don't know what's going to happen when I'm here, so we'll have to see.
I am not worried about that. Listen, you're so spot on, too, about the sports radio industry right now. I used to work in it before I started doing this years ago, and it is struggling right now as an industry. I just look around, not just Kansas City, but around the country, and there's no depth to it. There's no one doing anything more than just X's and O's, and that's what bored me about sports radio.
The only guy I see doing anything really critical out there, and he's more of a showman than anything else, is Stephen A. Smith. He is not afraid to tackle anybody or go after anything, but Pat McAfee's wildly popular. He's got a huge podcast. He's on ESPN every day. That guy's the biggest homer I've ever seen. Now, of course, he's got his flash, his style, and they curse, and they're young, and they're hip, and they do all these things. Has he ever criticized any NFL team or any NFL player? So he's a former player. He's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I just think there's a lot of that in the sports talk space, not just locally, but nationally. The people are afraid to be critical and look at something for what it is, and that will not be the case here.
Now, what about doing more news and politics? You obviously are someone who always had opinions on it, but you were a sports broadcaster. You've been doing a lot of it on your podcast. Obviously, you and I, similar ideologies, but we don't agree on everything either. So how have you enjoyed molding that into your broadcasting the last few years?
They're all the same. And I think Clay Travis kind of was the cutting edge on this at Outkick. He's obviously a big SEC football guy, but then started doing political things. We've had something really positive happen in America over the last decade. Since Donald Trump came down that escalator, and the space that I was in sports radio, being critical of a lot of the things the Chiefs were doing, it was very public, some of my comments about Andy Reid having his sons working for him, the convicted felons, and the things that were going on at Arrowhead. These are things that I talked about on radio, and people were uncomfortable with. Fans were sort of uncomfortable. Management was uncomfortable. A lot of things like that were going on. What we've done now, and the reason I chose the name Uncanceled, we are post-racist and we are post-cancellation in America. I honestly believe that. I think this diverse group of people that voted for Donald Trump said, we don't want to hear any more talk from either party about I'm racist, you're racist, that's racist. Okay, this was the most diverse group of people that ever voted for anybody. Donald Trump truly had diversity in his winning vote. We're seeing that. Diversity, in my mind, is diversity of thought. It's not your skin color, it's not your religion, it's not your gender, it's not your sexual identity. It's diversity of thought. There has been no diversity of thought in this country since Barack Obama ran for president in 2006. There's been none. It stopped. Trump came down. It was a crap show for several years. They have done everything they can to knock this man down. And then what do we see? Elon Musk steps up. Free speech. Tucker Carlson leaves Fox, goes into this podcast space, and then goes on X and does all these things, talks about free speech. And we can't let the media and these people on the left cancel us all. All of these people are uncanceled. Joe Rogan is out there saying things that he would have never said 10 years ago, I don't think. It's great for America. free speech matters and the fact that so many of the listeners of this radio station probably spent Thanksgiving discussing some of this with their family, feeling like it was okay now to say they voted for Trump, when in 2016 they didn't feel comfortable saying that, says everything about where we are in America, and it's glorious.
Well, it is glorious to have you here, my friend. I'm glad that you are willing to go down this road. You and I have talked about this as a possibility for a long time, and the fit is now, my man.
Buddy, I love radio. I just love radio. My first radio job in college, I was just hooked from day one. I love radio.
And there's nothing like it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled, 10 a.m. start time today on KCMO Talk Radio.